The courtroom door slammed open. Every head turned. The man standing in the doorway wasn't wearing a mechanic's uniform anymore. He was in a tailored suit that cost more than most people's monthly salary. Vanessa Hale, CEO, rising star, the woman who had mocked her ex-husband as a broke deadbeat just minutes ago, went pale. Her lawyer's folder slipped from his hands. Behind Ethan Mercer walked three attorneys carrying briefcases stamped with the logo of the fifth largest aviation company in America. "Your Honor," the lead attorney said, "we need to correct some misrepresentations about Mr. Mercer's financial situation." Vanessa's world was about to collapse. Before we dive into this story, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. Now let me take you back to where it all began. The fluorescent lights in the garage buzzed like angry wasps, casting harsh shadows across the concrete floor. Ethan Mercer wiped the oil from his hands with a rag that had seen better days, probably around the same time his marriage had. The wrench in his palm was older than his son. His father had given it to him 20 years ago, back when things made sense. Back when a handshake meant something and people said what they actually meant. "Dad, can we go now?" Noah's voice cut through the quiet hum of the garage. The kid was 7, small for his age, with his mother's sharp eyes and Ethan's tendency to notice things other people missed. "5 minutes, buddy. Just need to finish this manifold." Ethan didn't look up from the engine block. A 1967 Mustang, cherry red under all the dust and neglect. The owner would pick it up tomorrow, pay in cash, never ask questions about why a mechanic's rates were so low. That was how Ethan liked it. Noah kicked at a wrench on the floor. It spun in a lazy circle, metal scraping concrete. "Mom says you're wasting your life in here." Ethan's hands stopped moving. He set down the wrench carefully, precisely, the way a man does when he's trying not to break something, or someone. "Your mom say that to you directly?" "No." Noah looked at his sneakers. "I heard her on the phone, with that guy." "Adrian?" "Yeah." Ethan exhaled slowly through his nose. Adrian Cole, corporate broker, smooth talker, the kind of man who wore cologne that cost more than Ethan's monthly utility bill. Vanessa had introduced them 6 months ago at some charity gala she'd dragged Ethan to. "This is my husband," she'd said, and Ethan had caught the subtle embarrassment in her voice, the way she'd added "the mechanic" like it was an apology. Adrian had looked at Ethan's calloused hands and given him a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Honest work," he'd said. "We need more of that in this world." But his tone had suggested the opposite. What he'd really meant was, "You're beneath her, and we both know it." "Dad?" Noah was staring at him now, waiting. "Your mom's entitled to her opinion." Ethan stood, knees cracking, 32 years old, and he sounded like a man twice his age. "Grab your backpack. Let's get dinner." They drove home in Ethan's pickup truck, a 2003 Ford F-150, with a dent in the passenger door and a radio that only picked up AM stations. Noah fiddled with the dial, landing on a talk show discussing stock market trends. The kid listened for a moment, then switched it off. "Why don't we have a nice car?" Noah asked. "This is a nice car." "Mom says it's embarrassing." "Mom says a lot of things lately." They pulled into the driveway of the gray house on Elmwood Drive, a quiet street on the outskirts of Nashville, where the neighbors kept to themselves and the property taxes were reasonable. The house wasn't much to look at, single story, modest lawn, paint that could use a fresh coat, but it was paid off. No mortgage, no debt. Ethan's father had taught him that much. Own what you have, owe nothing to anyone. Inside, the house smelled like old books and motor oil, a combination that would have horrified Vanessa. She'd moved out 4 months ago, taken an apartment downtown, closer to her office, closer to Adrian. The divorce papers had arrived 3 weeks later, delivered by a courier who'd looked at Ethan with pity. "Sign here, here, and initial here," the courier had said, pointing with a pen that probably cost $50. Ethan had signed without reading. He already knew what it said. Vanessa wanted out. She wanted the life she thought she deserved, the one that didn't include a mechanic husband and a quiet house on the wrong side of town. Noah dropped his backpack by the door and headed straight for the kitchen. "Can we have pizza?" "We had pizza yesterday." So? "So we're having spaghetti." "That's basically pizza without the crust." Ethan almost smiled. Almost. "Go wash your hands." While the water boiled, Ethan stood at the kitchen window, looking out at the backyard. His father's old tool shed stood in the corner, paint peeling, roof sagging slightly. Inside were tools that dated back 50 years, aviation manuals from the 1970s, blueprints for aircraft designs that most people had never heard of. His father had been a quiet man too, the kind who let his work speak for itself. "You don't have to prove anything to anyone," his father had told him once, years ago, when Ethan was young and stupid and eager to make a name for himself. "The loud ones, they're trying to convince everyone they matter. The quiet ones already know." Ethan hadn't understood it then. He was starting to now. His phone buzzed, a text from Vanessa. "We need to talk. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., my office." No, please. No, if you're available. Just a command, the way she'd started talking to him over the past year, like he was an employee who'd disappointed her. He texted back, "Can't. I have Noah." Her response came immediately. "Bring him. This concerns him too." Ethan stared at the screen. Whatever this was, it wasn't good. The next day, Ethan dropped Noah off at Vanessa's office building downtown. The place was all glass and steel, 40 stories of corporate ambition reaching toward the sky. The lobby had a receptionist who looked like she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine, and the elevator played smooth jazz that made Ethan's teeth hurt. Vanessa's office was on the 32nd floor, corner office, floor-to-ceiling windows, a view of Nashville that made the city look cleaner than it actually was. She sat behind a desk made of imported walnut, wearing a suit that probably cost what Ethan made in a month. Adrian Cole was there too, leaning against the window like he owned the place. "Ethan," Vanessa didn't stand. "Thanks for coming. You said it was important." "It is." She gestured to a chair. "Sit." Ethan remained standing. Noah sat on a leather couch against the wall, pulling out a handheld game device, trying to disappear into the furniture. Vanessa sighed, the kind of exaggerated exhale she used when she wanted everyone to know she was dealing with difficult people. "I'll get to the point. I'm filing for full custody of Noah." The room went quiet. Even the city sounds from 32 floors below seemed to fade. "On what grounds?" Ethan's voice was level, calm. Years of practice. "On the grounds that you're financially unstable and incapable of providing him with a proper upbringing." Vanessa opened a folder on her desk. "You live in a house that's falling apart. You drive a truck that's older than our marriage, and you work in a garage that barely pays the bills." "The bills are paid." "Barely." She pulled out a document. "I've had someone look into your finances. You're living month to month, Ethan. That's not stability. That's not what Noah deserves." Adrian pushed off from the window, moving closer. "This isn't personal, Ethan. It's about the kid's future." "Right." Ethan looked at Adrian, really looked at him. Expensive watch, tailored suit, shoes that had never seen a day of actual work. "And you're the expert on children's welfare?" "I'm an expert on financial security." Adrian smiled, the same empty smile from the gala. "Something you clearly know nothing about." Ethan felt something cold settle in his chest, the kind of cold that came before a storm. He'd felt it before, years ago, when his father had sat him down and explained how the world really worked, how people would come after what you had if they thought you were weak. "I'm not signing anything," Ethan said. Vanessa's expression hardened. "You don't have a choice. My lawyers are filing the motion tomorrow. The court date is set for 3 weeks from now." "And Ethan?" She leaned forward, elbows on the expensive desk. "You're going to lose. You know why? Because I can give Noah everything you can't. A good school, a stable home, opportunities. What can you give him? Oil stains and false promises?" Noah looked up from his game, eyes wide. Ethan walked to the couch, held out his hand. "Come on, buddy. We're leaving." Noah took his father's hand without hesitation. "This isn't over," Vanessa called after them. Ethan didn't turn around. "No, it's not, Macha." They drove in silence for 10 minutes before Noah finally spoke. "Are you really broke, Dad?" Ethan glanced at his son. The kid was trying to be brave, but his voice shook just enough to give him away. "No." "Then why does Mom think you are?" "Because I wanted her to." Noah frowned. "That doesn't make sense." "It will. Eventually. They pulled into a parking lot downtown, a small diner called Mel's that served breakfast all day and didn't care if you sat in a booth for 2 hours nursing a cup of coffee. Ethan ordered pancakes for Noah, black coffee for himself. "Listen to me," Ethan said once the waitress had left. "Your mom and I, we're different people than we used to be. She wants things I don't care about. That's okay. People change. She said you're wasting your life. She might be right. Are you?" Ethan picked up his coffee, let the warmth seep into his hands. "I don't think so. But that's not for anyone else to decide." Noah stabbed at his pancakes with a fork. "Adrian's a jerk." "Yeah. Why does Mom like him?" "Because he's rich. You're not?" Ethan smiled, the first real smile in days. "Eat your pancakes, kid." That night, after Noah was asleep, Ethan went out to the tool shed. He unlocked the heavy padlock, original hardware from 1973, and stepped inside. The smell hit him immediately. Oil, old paper, the faint trace of his father's cologne that somehow still lingered after all these years. He pulled a tarp off the workbench in the back, revealing a metal filing cabinet. 3 drawers, each one locked. He opened the top drawer with a key he kept on a chain around his neck, hidden under his shirt. Inside were documents, lots of them. Incorporation papers, trust agreements, asset schedules, financial statements that showed balances with more zeros than most people saw in a lifetime. Mercer Aviation Group, founded 1968. Sole owner, Ethan James Mercer. He pulled out a specific folder, marked Emergency Protocol, Divorce. His father had created it 20 years ago, long before Ethan had even met Vanessa, back when the old man still believed in preparing for every possible threat. "They'll come after what we built," his father had said, sitting in this same shed, drinking whiskey from a jar. "Not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually. Someone will see what we have and think they deserve a piece. Could be a business partner, could be family, could be someone you love. Doesn't matter. When it happens, you'll know what to do." Ethan had thought the old man was paranoid. Turned out he was just experienced. He opened the folder. Inside was a legal strategy, step by step, written in his father's tight handwriting. There were names of attorneys, the best in the state, people who owed the Mercer family favors going back decades. There were asset reports ready to be filed in court. There were private investigation summaries on common tactics used in custody battles. And at the bottom, paperclipped to the last page, was a handwritten note. "Son, if you're reading this, it means someone underestimated you. Let them. The best weapon you have is the assumption that you're weak. Use it." Ethan sat down on an old stool, the folder heavy in his hands. He thought about Vanessa, about the woman he'd married 8 years ago. She'd been different then, or maybe he'd been too young to see who she really was. She'd been ambitious, sure, but back then it had seemed like passion, like drive. They'd met at a community college business class. She was taking night courses to get her degree. He was there because his father had insisted education mattered, even if you worked with your hands. They'd gotten coffee after class. Then dinner. Then more dinners. She'd laughed at his jokes, said she liked that he wasn't trying to impress her with money or status. "You're real," she'd said. "Everyone else is fake." The wedding had been small. Her parents hadn't approved. "A mechanic?" her mother had said, not quite under her breath, but Vanessa had insisted. "I love him," she'd told them. And Ethan had believed her. Maybe she'd believed it too back then. But people change. Vanessa got her degree, then an MBA, then a job at Hale & Associates, a commercial real estate firm that handled high-profile developments across the South. She was good at it too. Smart, ruthless when she needed to be, willing to work 80-hour weeks to close a deal. She started making more money. A lot more. And with the money came new friends, new circles, new expectations. Country club memberships, charity galas, business dinners where Ethan felt like an anthropological specimen, the blue-collar husband who didn't know which fork to use. "Why don't you wear the suit I bought you?" Vanessa had asked before one event. "Because I look like a kid playing dress-up." "You look fine." "I look like someone I'm not." She'd sighed, that same exasperated exhale from her office. "You could at least try." But trying meant pretending. And Ethan had learned early that pretending was exhausting. So he'd kept his garage, kept his truck, kept his quiet life. And Vanessa had kept climbing, kept reaching, kept looking for something he couldn't give her. Then Adrian had appeared. Ethan didn't know when it started exactly. 6 months ago? A year? Didn't matter. Adrian was everything Ethan wasn't. Polished, connected, wealthy in an obvious way. He drove a Mercedes, lived in a downtown loft, spoke 3 languages, and dropped references to European cities like they were gas stations. Vanessa had insisted Adrian was just a colleague, but Ethan had seen the way she smiled when Adrian texted, the way she checked her appearance before meetings with him, the way she started comparing their lives to his. Adrian's firm closed a $20 million deal today, she'd say over dinner. Good for Adrian. Don't you want more than this? Then what? This. She'd gesture around their kitchen, at the modest house, the simple life. Don't you want to build something, accomplish something? I'm raising our son. That's not enough, Ethan. And there it was. The truth she'd been dancing around for months. He wasn't enough. The life they'd built wasn't enough. She wanted more money, more status, more recognition. She wanted to be someone. She wanted Adrian. Ethan closed the folder and locked it back in the filing cabinet. He covered the cabinet with the tarp, locked the shed, and walked back to the house under a sky full of stars that didn't care about any of this. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of legal preparations. Ethan hired the attorney his father had recommended, a woman named Margaret Chen, 60 years old, with a reputation for dismantling opposing counsel like she was taking apart a faulty engine. They think you're weak, Margaret said at their first meeting. She sat across from Ethan in a conference room that smelled like lemon polish. That's good. Let them keep thinking that. Until when? Until the hearing. Then we show them exactly who you are. She pulled out a legal pad. I need you to bring me everything. Every document in that filing cabinet, every asset report, every piece of evidence that proves you're not who they think you are. That'll expose everything. Yes. My father spent 40 years keeping this quiet. Your father didn't have someone trying to take his son. Margaret looked at him over her reading glasses. What matters more, Ethan? Your privacy or Noah? He didn't need to answer. Over the next 2 weeks, Margaret built a case that would have made his father proud. She compiled financial records showing Mercer Aviation Group's assets, 12 aircraft, 3 hangars across 2 states, contracts with regional airlines worth millions annually. She gathered tax returns, business filings, property deeds, all the proof that Ethan Mercer was not, in fact, a struggling mechanic living paycheck to paycheck. She also hired a private investigator to look into Adrian Cole. The investigator's report came back on a Tuesday afternoon. Ethan read it in his truck, parked outside Noah's school, waiting for pickup. Adrian Cole had a pattern. Over the past 10 years, he'd targeted 3 different women, all successful, all wealthy, or connected to wealth. He'd romance them, gain their trust, then slowly work his way into their business dealings. 2 of the relationships had ended in lawsuits. The 3rd woman had filed a restraining order. He wasn't interested in Vanessa. He was interested in what he thought she had access to. But Adrian had made a mistake. He'd assumed Vanessa knew about Ethan's money. He'd assumed she was hiding it, protecting it, keeping it from a divorce settlement. So Adrian had convinced her to file for divorce, to take full custody, to position herself as the stable parent while painting Ethan as destitute. The plan was simple. Once Vanessa had full custody, Adrian would marry her, position himself as Noah's stepfather, and eventually gain access to the family fortune he assumed existed. What Adrian didn't know was that Vanessa genuinely believed Ethan was broke. She'd never looked deeper, never questioned why a mechanic could afford a paid-off house, and never seemed stressed about money. She'd just assumed he was scraping by, too proud to admit it. Adrian had played her, and she'd let him. Ethan folded the report and put it in the glove compartment. Noah came running out of school, backpack bouncing, face bright. Dad, guess what? What? I got an A on my science project. That's great, buddy. They drove home, Noah chattering about experiments and volcanoes, and whether it was possible to make a rocket out of soda bottles. Ethan listened, made appropriate noises, tried not to think about the hearing scheduled for tomorrow. That night, he tucked Noah into bed, read him a chapter from a book about airplanes, and sat in the dark for a while after the kid fell asleep. I'm going to fix this, Ethan whispered to the quiet room. I promise. The courthouse was downtown, a stone building that looked like it had been there since Nashville was founded. Ethan arrived early, wearing the one good suit he owned. Not expensive, but clean and pressed. Margaret met him at the entrance. "Ready?" she asked. "No?" "Good. Nervous is good. Keeps you sharp." They went through security, took the elevator to the fourth floor, found the courtroom. It was smaller than Ethan had expected, wood paneling and fluorescent lights and a smell like old paper. Vanessa was already there, sitting at the plaintiff's table with her legal team, 3 lawyers in suits that collectively cost more than a used car. Adrian sat behind her in the gallery, looking confident, like this was already won. Noah wasn't there. The judge had ruled that he didn't need to be present for the preliminary hearing. The bailiff called the court to order. Judge Patricia Morrison entered, a black woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and an expression that suggested she'd heard every lie ever told. "This is a custody hearing," Judge Morrison said, settling into her chair. "Petitioner is Vanessa Hale. Respondent is Ethan Mercer. Ms. Hale, you're claiming that Mr. Mercer is financially unstable and therefore unfit for primary custody. Is that correct?" Vanessa's lead attorney stood. "Yes, Your Honor. We have extensive documentation showing that Mr. Mercer lives below the poverty line, has no career prospects, and cannot provide a stable environment for the child." "Mr. Mercer." Margaret stood. "We dispute those claims, Your Honor, completely." "Then let's hear your evidence, counselor." What happened next would become something of a legend in Nashville legal circles, a story told by law students and veteran attorneys alike. Vanessa's team went first. They presented tax returns from Ethan's garage, a small business that showed modest income, enough to get by but nothing impressive. They showed photos of his house, his truck, his lifestyle. They called a witness, one of Vanessa's colleagues, who testified that Ethan had showed up to a company event looking like he'd just crawled out from under a car. They painted a picture of a man barely keeping his head above water, a man who couldn't possibly provide for a child the way a successful CEO could. Adrian watched from the gallery, nodding along, like everything was going according to plan. Then Margaret stood up. "Your Honor, if I may?" "Proceed." Margaret walked to the evidence table and pulled out a filing box. Then another. Then another. "These," she said, "are the financial records for Mercer Aviation Group, a private corporation founded in 1968 by Thomas Mercer and currently owned entirely by his son, Ethan James Mercer." She opened the first box. These documents show that Mr. Mercer owns 12 aircraft valued at approximately $18 million. He also owns 3 aviation hangars, 2 in Tennessee and 1 in Kentucky, valued at another $12 million. And he holds contracts with 4 regional airlines, generating approximately $7 million in annual revenue. The courtroom went silent. Vanessa's face went pale. Adrian leaned forward, confusion replacing confidence. Margaret continued, pulling out document after document. "Here are Mr. Mercer's actual tax returns, not from his garage, which is indeed a modest operation, but from his aviation business. As you can see, Mr. Mercer's annual income is substantial. He has no debt, no mortgages, and assets totaling approximately $43 million. She paused, letting that number sink in. "Furthermore, Margaret said, "we have evidence that the petitioner's colleague, Mr. Adrian Cole," she gestured to the gallery, "has spent the past 18 months attempting to gain access to the Mercer family business through fraudulent means. He has a history of targeting wealthy women, cultivating relationships under false pretenses, and positioning himself to exploit their assets. In this case, he convinced Ms. Hale that her husband was hiding money from her, when in fact she simply never asked the right questions." Vanessa turned to look at Adrian. What is she talking about? Adrian was already standing. "This is ridiculous. Your Honor, I'm not even party to this case." "Sit down, Mr. Cole," Judge Morrison said, "or leave. Your choice." Adrian left. He walked straight out of the courtroom, didn't look back, didn't say a word to Vanessa. Margaret presented more evidence: bank statements, property deeds, corporate filings. Every piece of paper proved the same thing. Ethan Mercer was not broke. He was not struggling. He was not the man Vanessa had described. Vanessa's lead attorney tried to recover. "Your Honor, even if these documents are legitimate, they don't change the fact that Mr. Mercer has misrepresented himself. To whom? Margaret interrupted. He never claimed to be poor. He simply lived modestly. There's no law against that. Judge Morrison held up a hand. That's enough from both of you. She looked at Ethan. Mr. Mercer, why didn't you tell your wife about your financial situation? Ethan stood. Because my father taught me that what you have doesn't define who you are, Your Honor. I didn't see the point in advertising it. But you let her believe you were struggling. I let her believe what she wanted to believe. Ethan glanced at Vanessa. She never asked. And when I tried to talk about my father's business, she wasn't interested. It didn't fit the life she wanted. Judge Morrison leaned back in her chair, studying both of them. Ms. Hale, did you know about your husband's business? Vanessa's voice was barely a whisper. No. Did you ever ask? No. Did you investigate his finances before filing this motion? My attorney did. Clearly not well enough. The judge looked at Vanessa's legal team. Counsel, this is embarrassing. You brought a custody case based on financial instability without actually verifying your client's claims? The lead attorney stammered. We relied on the information provided, Your Honor. Then you should have verified it. This is family court, not small claims. Do better. Judge Morrison turned to Margaret. Ms. Chen, do you have anything else? Just one thing, Your Honor. Margaret pulled out a final document. This is a statement from Noah Mercer's school. His teachers report that he's well-adjusted, happy, and showing no signs of neglect or instability. In fact, they note that his father volunteers regularly, attends every parent-teacher conference, and is actively involved in his education. Whatever else might be said about Mr. Mercer, he's been an exemplary parent. Judge Morrison reviewed the statement. Then she set it down and looked at both parties. Here's my ruling, she said. The petition for custody modification is denied. Primary custody remains with Mr. Mercer. Ms. Hale, you will continue to have visitation as outlined in your divorce agreement. This hearing is adjourned. The gavel came down. Vanessa sat frozen in her chair, staring at nothing. Ethan stood, shook Margaret's hand, and walked out of the courtroom. He didn't celebrate. He didn't gloat. He just left, because there was nothing else to say. Outside in the hallway, he checked his phone. A text from Noah's school. Early dismissal today. Can you pick up at noon? He texted back, on my way. Behind him, through the courthouse doors, he could hear Vanessa's voice, rising in volume, demanding to know where Adrian had gone, why her lawyers hadn't found this information, how this had happened. Ethan kept walking. He had a son to pick up. Noah was waiting on the school steps when Ethan pulled up, backpack slung over one shoulder, talking to a girl with pigtails. He said goodbye and jogged to the truck, climbing in with the kind of energy only 7-year-olds possessed after sitting still for 4 hours. Why'd they let us out early? Noah buckled his seatbelt. Teacher planning day. Ethan pulled away from the curb. Hungry? Always. They stopped at a sandwich shop, nothing fancy, just the kind of place with paper napkins and a menu board above the register. Noah ordered turkey with extra pickles. Ethan got coffee and watched his son eat, the kid completely oblivious to what had just happened downtown. Can we go to the shed today? Noah asked through a mouthful of sandwich. Maybe later. You always say that. Because you always ask. Noah swallowed. Grandpa's stuff is cool. You never show me anything anymore. Ethan took a drink of coffee, buying time. The shed had always been off limits, mostly. Noah had been inside a handful of times, seen the old tools, the dusty manuals, but never the filing cabinet, never the real secrets. Tell you what, Ethan said. Finish your homework first. Then we'll see. Deal. They drove home in comfortable silence, the kind that came from spending enough time together that talking wasn't always necessary. The gray house looked exactly the same as it had that morning, paint still peeling, lawn still needing mowing. Nothing had changed, except everything had. Ethan's phone buzzed. A text from Margaret. Good work today. Call me tomorrow to discuss next steps. He deleted it. There wouldn't be next steps. The custody battle was over. Vanessa had lost. That should have felt like victory, but mostly it just felt tired. Another text came through, this one from a number he didn't recognize. We need to talk, please. V. He stared at it for a long moment, then set the phone face down on the kitchen counter. Noah disappeared into his room to tackle homework. Ethan stood at the kitchen sink, washing dishes that didn't really need washing, trying to process what had happened in that courtroom. Vanessa's face when Margaret had pulled out those documents. The way Adrian had just walked out, abandoning her without a word. The judge's voice, matter of fact, denying the petition like it was nothing more than a parking ticket dispute. His phone buzzed again, and again, and again. He picked it up. 7 texts from Vanessa, each one more desperate than the last. Please talk to me. I didn't know about Adrian. I need to understand what just happened. Why didn't you tell me? Ethan, please, I know I don't deserve it, but I need 5 minutes. Please. He typed back, not today. Her response was immediate. When? I don't know, Ethan. I'm begging you. He put the phone away and walked outside onto the back porch where the afternoon sun was starting to slant through the trees. The shed sat in the corner of the yard, patient and still, keeping its secrets the way it had for decades. His father had built that shed with his own hands, back in 1971, 2 years before Ethan was born. A man needs a place, his father had said, somewhere that's just his, somewhere he can think without the world pressing in. Ethan had asked once why he'd built it so far from the house, tucked back against the property line. Privacy, his father had said. Nobody needs to know your business unless you decide to tell them. The old man had been right about a lot of things. He'd built an aviation empire from nothing. Started with 1 crop duster, a bank loan, and a willingness to work 18-hour days. By the time he died 5 years ago, Mercer Aviation Group was operating across 3 states, employing 47 people and turning profits that would have made most small businesses weep with envy. And through it all, Thomas Mercer had lived in the same modest house, driven the same practical vehicles, and never once felt the need to prove anything to anyone. They'll think you're small, he'd told Ethan during one of their last conversations. Let them. Small targets are harder to hit. Ethan hadn't understood the danger back then. He'd been 27, newly married, optimistic about the future. Vanessa had seemed different from the wealthy circles his father had warned him about. She'd come from a middle-class family, worked her way through college, earned everything she had. But people change. Or maybe they just reveal who they always were once the circumstances are right. The back door opened. Noah stuck his head out. I'm done with homework. Can we go to the shed now? Ethan looked at his son, small for his age, but smart, perceptive in ways that sometimes caught Ethan off guard. The kid had his mother's ambition, but his grandfather's patience. That was a good combination. Maybe the best. Yeah, Ethan said. Let's go. They walked across the yard together. Ethan unlocked the shed, and the familiar smell washed over them, oil and old paper and history. Noah went straight for the workbench, running his hands over tools that were older than his father. Why do you keep all this stuff? Noah asked. Because it belonged to your grandfather, and someday it'll belong to you. Even the boring papers? Especially those. Noah picked up a wrench, tested its weight. Was Grandpa rich? The question landed like a stone in still water. Why do you ask? Mom said you were lying about being poor, in the car yesterday on the phone. She told someone you'd been lying the whole time. Ethan sat down on an old stool. Your grandfather built a good business. He was smart with money, but he didn't live like he was rich. Why not? Because he knew that once people know what you have, they start thinking they deserve a piece of it. They start looking at you different, treating you different. Noah set down the wrench. Is that why you don't tell people? Yeah. Does Mom know now? She does? Is she mad? Ethan almost laughed. Mad didn't begin to cover it. She's confused and probably angry, but mostly at herself. Noah climbed up onto the workbench, legs dangling. Adrian left, didn't he? How do you know that? I heard Mom on the phone this morning, before school. She was crying. The kid looked down at his sneakers. She doesn't cry a lot. Ethan felt something twist in his chest. Whatever else had happened, whatever betrayals and lies had poisoned their marriage, Vanessa was still Noah's mother. And Noah loved her, the way kids love their parents even when those parents make catastrophic mistakes. She's going through a hard time, Ethan said carefully, but she'll be okay. Will we? We're already okay, buddy. Noah was quiet for a moment, swinging his legs, thinking. Can I ask you something? Always. If you have all this money, why do we live like we don't? It was the question Ethan had been avoiding, the one he'd known would come eventually. He could have given Noah some easy answer, some simplified version of his father's philosophy, but the kid deserved better than that. "Come here," Ethan said. Noah hopped down from the workbench. Ethan walked to the filing cabinet, unlocked it, and pulled out a photograph. It showed a younger Thomas Mercer standing in front of a small airplane, oil-stained coveralls, wrench in hand, grinning at the camera like he'd just won the lottery. "That's Grandpa's first plane," Ethan said. 1968. He bought it for $8,000, which was everything he had. People told him he was crazy. Said crop dusting was a dead-end business, that he'd lose his shirt. Noah studied the photo. But he didn't. No, he worked that plane 18 hours a day during harvest season, saved every penny, bought a second plane 2 years later, then a third, built hangars, hired pilots, expanded into cargo transport. By the time I was your age, he had 15 aircraft and contracts across the South. So he got rich. He built something, Ethan corrected. There's a difference. Getting rich is about the money. Building something is about what you create, what you leave behind. Noah traced his finger over the photograph. What did he leave behind? A business that employs people. Families that depend on those jobs. A legacy that means something. Ethan put the photo back in the cabinet. And he left me a choice. I could either show everyone what we had, make noise, live big, or I could keep doing what he did, work hard, stay quiet, protect what matters. Which did you choose? The quiet one. Why? Because the loud ones, they attract attention, and attention brings problems. People like Adrian, who see dollar signs instead of human beings. People who'll use you, manipulate you, take everything you have if you let them. Noah absorbed this, his 7-year-old brain working through concepts that most adults never fully grasped. Is that why Mom left? Because you were quiet? Ethan locked the cabinet. Your mom left because she wanted something I couldn't give her. She wanted to be seen, to matter in ways that had nothing to do with who she actually was. And that's okay. That's her choice. But it hurt you. Yeah, it did. They stood in the shed for a while longer, not talking, just existing in the space that Thomas Mercer had built for exactly this purpose, thinking without the world pressing in. Finally, Noah said, I like being quiet. Ethan ruffled his son's hair. Good. Me too. They locked up the shed and headed back to the house. Ethan made dinner, nothing fancy, just spaghetti and garlic bread, and they ate while Noah talked about school, about the science project he was planning, about whether it was possible to build a hovercraft out of a leaf blower and a shower curtain. After dinner, after Noah was in bed, Ethan finally looked at his phone again. 17 missed calls from Vanessa, 6 voicemails, 23 text messages. He listened to the first voicemail. Ethan, it's me. I need to talk to you. Please call me back. Her voice sounded hollow, scraped raw. He deleted it and listened to the second. I didn't know about Adrian. I swear I didn't know. He said you were hiding assets, that you were trying to screw me over in the divorce. I believed him. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. The third voicemail was just crying. He deleted them all. The text messages were more of the same, apologies, explanations, desperate attempts to make him understand that she hadn't known, hadn't meant for any of this to happen. But that was the thing about betrayal. Intent didn't matter as much as people thought it did. Vanessa had believed the worst about him without asking, without verifying, without giving him the benefit of doubt. She'd assumed he was broke and bitter, lying to save face, clinging to a life that embarrassed her. She'd been so ready to believe Adrian because Adrian's story confirmed what she already thought about Ethan, that he was small, that he was failing, that he wasn't enough. And maybe that was the real betrayal, not the divorce, not the custody battle, but the fact that she'd looked at 8 years of marriage and decided he wasn't worth a single hard question. He typed out a response. I'll meet with you. Thursday, 6 p.m., Riverside Park. Come alone. Her reply came within seconds. Thank you. I'll be there. He set down the phone and sat in the dark living room, listening to the house settle around him. Somewhere down the hall, Noah was asleep, safe, unaware of the adult complications swirling around his life. Ethan had won the custody battle. He'd protected his son, exposed Adrian's scheme, proven that he was exactly as capable as he'd always been. So why did it feel like losing? The next 2 days passed in a blur of normalcy. Ethan worked in the garage, fixed a transmission, replaced brake pads on a Honda that had seen better days. Noah went to school, came home, did homework, played in the backyard. They ate dinner together, watched a documentary about airplanes, went to bed at reasonable hours. On the surface, everything was fine. Underneath, Ethan kept replaying the courtroom scene. Vanessa's face when she realized Adrian had used her. The way she'd turned to look for him, only to find empty space where he'd been sitting. The humiliation in her voice when the judge had asked if she'd verified her claims. Part of him felt vindicated. She doubted him, attacked him, tried to take away his son based on assumptions and lies. She deserved every bit of that public embarrassment. But another part, the part that remembered falling in love with her, that remembered late-night conversations and shared dreams, that part just felt sad. Thursday came. Ethan dropped Noah off at Vanessa's mother's house for a sleepover with his cousin. The old woman gave Ethan a look that could have curdled milk. "My daughter's a mess because of you," she said at the door. "Your daughter's a mess because of her choices, Mrs. Hale." "You should have told her about the money. She should have asked." Mrs. Hale's mouth thinned into a line. "You're a cruel man, Ethan Mercer." "I'm a careful one. There's a difference." He left before she could respond. Riverside Park was a strip of green along the Cumberland River, popular with joggers and families. At 6 p.m. on a Thursday, it was mostly empty. A few dog walkers, a couple on a bench, someone flying a kite that kept crashing into trees. Vanessa was already there, sitting at a picnic table near the water. She'd dressed down, jeans, a simple blouse, hair pulled back, no makeup that Ethan could see. She looked younger than 30 and older than 30, both at the same time. He sat down across from her. "Thank you for coming," she said. "You wanted to talk." "I'm here." She nodded, staring at her hands. "I don't know where to start." "The beginning usually works." "The beginning was 8 years ago. We were happy then." "We were young," Ethan corrected. "Different thing." Vanessa flinched. "You think we were never happy?" "I think we were happy until you decided I wasn't good enough for the life you wanted." "That's not fair." "Isn't it?" Ethan leaned back, arms crossed. "When did it start, Vanessa? When did you start being embarrassed by me?" She was quiet for a long time. The river moved past them, indifferent to human drama. "It wasn't one thing," she finally said. "It was 1,000 little things. Charity events where people asked what you did and I had to say mechanic and watch their faces change. Business dinners where you wore the same suit every time because you only owned one. Company retreats where everyone else brought spouses who fit in, who knew how to talk about stock options and portfolio diversification, and you just sat there looking uncomfortable. So you were embarrassed. I was frustrated. I wanted you to want more, to be more. I was exactly who I've always been. You just decided that wasn't enough." Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. "I worked so hard, Ethan. I clawed my way up from nothing. Every promotion, every deal, every success, I earned it. And I wanted to share that with you, to celebrate with someone who understood what it took. But you didn't care. You never cared about any of it. Because it didn't matter. It mattered to me." Her voice echoed across the park. The couple on the bench looked over, then quickly looked away. Ethan kept his voice level. "You want to know why I didn't tell you about the business? About the money?" "Yes. Because I wanted to know if you'd love me without it. I wanted to know if I was enough, just as I was, without the aviation empire or the bank accounts or any of it." He paused. "Turns out I wasn't." "That's not true. You filed for divorce, Vanessa. You tried to take our son away because you thought I was broke. You believed the absolute worst about me because it fit the story you'd already written in your head. Adrian told me you were hiding money. He showed me reports, financial analyses that suggested, and you believed him instead of asking me directly." Vanessa wiped at her eyes. "He was convincing. He was a con artist. And you let him convince you because deep down, you wanted to believe I was the problem, that I was holding you back, that your life would be better without me in it." "I loved you." Past tense, yeah. I noticed. They sat in silence. A dog barked somewhere downstream. The kite finally got stuck in a tree, and its owner gave up and walked away, leaving it there to flap in the wind. What did Adrian want? Ethan asked. Vanessa shook her head. I don't even know anymore. He said he wanted to help me protect myself in the divorce. He had lawyers, financial advisors, people who could properly assess your hidden assets. He made it sound like you were this criminal mastermind hiding millions while I struggled. And you bought it. I did. She looked at him directly for the first time. I'm sorry. That doesn't fix anything, but I am. Sorry for believing him, or sorry it didn't work out the way you planned? Both. Neither. I don't know. She twisted her hands together. When that lawyer pulled out those documents in court, when I realized you'd had all that money the whole time, I felt like an idiot. And then Adrian just left, and I understood, really understood, that he'd never cared about me at all. He thought I knew about your business. He thought I was some wealthy CEO with access to family money. He was playing me the whole time. Yeah. But so were you. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Excuse me? You let me think you were struggling. You watched me worry about bills, about Noah's future, about whether we'd have enough for emergencies, and the whole time you had $40 million sitting in bank accounts. We never struggled with bills. They were always paid. But I didn't know that. I thought we were one bad month away from disaster. That's what you wanted to think, Ethan said. You wanted to see me as failing so you could justify leaving. Don't put that on me. Vanessa stood abruptly. You know what? You're right about all of it. I was embarrassed. I wanted more. I believed Adrian because it was easier than admitting I'd made a mistake marrying you. Finally, the truth. But you're not innocent in this, Ethan. You hid who you were. You played the poor mechanic act while sitting on a fortune. That's manipulation too. I lived the life I wanted to live. I never lied about it. You lied by omission. I protected myself, Ethan corrected, standing to meet her. My father taught me that people treat you different when they know what you have. They start wanting things, expecting things. They stop seeing you as a person and start seeing you as a resource. And he was right. Look at us. The moment you found out, your whole perspective changed. Because you'd been lying. No, because you finally saw that the problem wasn't me being broke. It was you being greedy. Vanessa stepped back like he'd slapped her. That's not fair. Life's not fair. You wanted a divorce. You got one. You wanted to humiliate me in court. That backfired. Now you want forgiveness? Absolution? What exactly are you here for, Vanessa? She sank back onto the bench, deflated. I don't know. I needed you to know I didn't mean for it to go that far. The custody thing. Adrian pushed for it. He said it would give us leverage, that you'd have to negotiate, reveal your assets to keep Noah. So you were willing to use our son as a bargaining chip. I thought I was protecting him from poverty. He was never in poverty. You just refused to see that. Vanessa buried her face in her hands. Her shoulders shook. Ethan watched her cry and felt nothing. No satisfaction, no sympathy, just a deep, bone-tired exhaustion. I loved you, she said through her hands. I really did. Maybe I still do. I don't know anymore. You loved who you thought I was, Ethan said. When I turned out to be someone different, someone who didn't fit your plan, you decided to trade me in. That's fine. People make choices. But don't sit here and pretend this was all Adrian's fault. You made every decision that led us here. She looked up at him, mascara running despite the lack of makeup he'd thought she was wearing. What happens now? Noah lives with me. You get visitation, same as before. We co-parent like adults. That's it? What else is there? I don't know, closure, understanding. We understand each other just fine now, Ethan said. Maybe for the first time. He turned to walk away. Ethan, wait. He stopped but didn't turn around. Does Noah know? About the money? He knows enough. Will you tell him about Adrian, about what I did? He already knows you tried to take him away from me. Kids aren't stupid, Vanessa. They hear things. They understand more than we think. I don't want him to hate me. Then be a better mother than you were a wife. He walked away, leaving her sitting at the picnic table by the river. He didn't look back. There wasn't any point. When he got home, he called Mrs. Hale and asked to pick up Noah early. It's barely 7, she protested. I know, I miss my kid. There was a pause. Vanessa called me. She's upset. She'll survive. You're really not going to forgive her? I already did, Ethan said. That doesn't mean I'm going to forget. He picked up Noah 20 minutes later. The kid was in the middle of a video game battle with his cousin, but abandoned it immediately when Ethan arrived. "You're early," Noah said, grabbing his backpack. "Change of plans." They drove home with the windows down, warm evening air rushing through the cab. Noah fiddled with the radio, found a station playing old country music, left it there. "Did you talk to Mom?" he asked. "Yeah." "Is she okay?" "She will be." Noah was quiet for a minute. "Is she going to keep trying to take me away?" "No, that's done." "Promise?" Ethan glanced at his son. "Promise." They pulled into the driveway. The gray house looked the same as always, modest, weathered, home. Ethan killed the engine and they sat there for a moment, listening to the truck tick as it cooled. "Dad?" "Yeah?" "Can I see the planes sometime? The real ones, not just pictures?" Ethan smiled. "Yeah, we can do that." "When?" "Soon." "You always say that." "This time I mean it." They went inside and Noah headed straight for the shower, trailing dirt from his cousin's backyard across the hallway. Ethan didn't bother mentioning it. Some messes weren't worth the energy. He sat at the kitchen table and pulled out his phone, scrolling through emails he'd been ignoring for days. Most were routine: invoices from suppliers, maintenance schedules for aircraft, a request from one of his hangar managers about upgrading security systems. Nothing urgent, nothing that couldn't wait. One email stood out. The sender was listed as A. Cole with no subject line. Ethan stared at it for a long moment before opening it. "You think you won. You didn't. This isn't over." That was it. 10 words and a threat that didn't specify what it was threatening. Ethan deleted it and blocked the address. Adrian Cole was done. Whatever game he'd been playing had ended the moment he walked out of that courtroom. Men like Adrian moved on quickly when a con collapsed. There were always more marks, more opportunities, more wealthy women to manipulate. Except something about the email bothered him. Adrian hadn't struck Ethan as the type to make empty threats. He was too calculated, too strategic. Everything he did served a purpose. So what was the purpose of that email? Ethan forwarded it to Margaret Chen with a brief message. "Received this today. Thought you should know." Her response came back within minutes. "I'll look into it. In the meantime, keep records of any contact he attempts." Noah emerged from the shower wearing pajamas that were getting too small, sleeves riding up his arms. The kid was growing faster than Ethan could keep up with. "What are you doing?" Noah asked, peering over Ethan's shoulder at the phone. "Work stuff." "Is it about the planes?" "Sort of." Noah climbed into the chair next to him. "When can we see them? The real planes, not just the shed stuff." Ethan set down his phone. "You really want to?" "Yeah, I mean, if Grandpa built all that, I should probably know what it looks like, right?" The kid had a point. Thomas Mercer had spent 40 years building something meaningful, and Noah was the only family left to inherit it. At some point, he'd need to understand what that meant. "This weekend," Ethan said, "Saturday morning. We'll drive down to the hangar." Noah's face lit up. "Really? Really? Can I sit in the cockpit?" "We'll see." "That's adult for probably not." "That's adult for we'll see." Noah grinned and headed off to bed without argument, which was unusual enough that Ethan almost checked if the kid had a fever. But he let it go. Some victories didn't need examination. After Noah was asleep, Ethan sat on the back porch with a beer he didn't really want, looking at the shed. The door was locked, the secrets inside safe for another night. But the email from Adrian kept nagging at him. This isn't over. What wasn't over? The custody battle was decided. Vanessa had her answer. Adrian's scheme had been exposed. There was nothing left to fight over, unless Adrian knew something Ethan didn't. He pulled out his phone and called Margaret. She answered on the second ring. "I was just about to call you." "What did you find?" "Adrian Cole filed a lawsuit this afternoon. Against you." Ethan sat up straighter. "On what grounds?" "Defamation and intentional interference with business relationships. He's claiming that the information presented in court damaged his professional reputation and cost him multiple business contracts." "That's insane. Everything we presented was factual." "I know, which is why this won't go anywhere. But it's going to be annoying. He's asking for $2 million in damages." Ethan laughed, a short, bitter sound. "He's got some nerve." Men like him usually do. The suit is frivolous. No judge will take it seriously, but it'll tie us up for a few months. Depositions, filings, the usual legal theater. Can we countersue? We could, but that prolongs the whole thing. My recommendation? Let me file a motion to dismiss, then we move on with our lives. Adrian's trying to save face. This is his way of pretending he still has some control. And if the motion gets denied? It won't, trust me. Ethan trusted her. Margaret had been practicing family law for 30 years, came recommended by his father's estate attorney, and hadn't been wrong yet. If she said the lawsuit was nothing, it was nothing, but it still felt like something. He hung up and finished his beer, watching the stars emerge over the backyard. The night was quiet except for crickets and the distant sound of traffic on the main road. Peaceful. The kind of peace that made you suspicious when everything else was chaos. Saturday morning arrived with clear skies and Noah awake before 6, bouncing around the house like he'd mainlined sugar. Ethan made pancakes while the kid peppered him with questions about the planes, about what they looked like, about whether they were fast, about whether Ethan knew how to fly them. "I have my license," Ethan said, flipping a pancake. "Your grandpa taught me when I was 16. You can fly?" "Small aircraft, yeah. Single-engine props, mostly. Nothing fancy." "That's so cool. Why didn't you ever tell me?" "Never came up." "That's the kind of thing that should come up, Dad." Ethan smiled. Noted. They ate breakfast quickly, loaded into the truck, and headed south out of Nashville. The drive took about 40 minutes, winding through countryside that gradually transitioned from suburban sprawl to open farmland. The hangar was located near a small municipal airport, the kind of place that catered to private pilots and cargo operations rather than commercial flights. Ethan pulled off the main road onto a gravel drive marked by a weathered sign. Mercer Aviation, private property. Noah pressed his face against the window. "This is it?" "This is one of them." The hangar sat at the end of the drive, a massive metal structure that looked like it could house a commercial jet. Next to it was a smaller building that served as offices, and beyond that, a concrete tarmac where 3 aircraft sat gleaming in the morning sun. Ethan parked near the office. A man in his 50s emerged, wiping his hands on a rag. Frank Morrison, the hangar manager, had worked for Thomas Mercer for 20 years and stayed on after the old man died. "Ethan," Frank said, shaking his hand. "Wasn't expecting you today. Figured it was time to show Noah the operation." Frank looked down at the kid. "You're taller than the last time I saw you." "I'm 7 now," Noah said, like that explained everything. 7's a good age. Come on, I'll give you the tour. They walked across the tarmac toward the aircraft. The nearest one was a Cessna 172, white with blue stripes, looking exactly like what someone who didn't know planes would picture when they heard the word airplane. "This is our trainer," Frank explained. "We use it for flight instruction, short hops, maintenance checks. Your grandpa bought it in 1985, still runs like new." Noah circled the plane, eyes wide. "Can I touch it?" "Go ahead." The kid ran his hand along the fuselage, careful and reverent, like he was petting a wild animal that might spook. Ethan watched him, remembering the first time his own father had brought him here, shown him the planes, explained what they meant. "This is what we built," Thomas had said. "Not for the money, not for status, for freedom. When you're up there, above the clouds, nothing else matters. No debts, no problems, no people trying to take what's yours. Just you and the sky." Ethan had understood it then in the abstract. He understood it now in his bones. They moved to the second aircraft, a larger twin-engine Piper Navajo used for cargo transport. Frank opened the cargo door and let Noah climb inside, showing him how the seats folded down, how the tie-down straps worked, how the weight had to be distributed carefully for safe flight. The third aircraft was the crown jewel, a Beechcraft King Air, sleek and expensive, the kind of plane that made people look twice. "This one's for the high-paying clients," Frank said. "Corporate executives, time-sensitive cargo, medical transports, seats 8, cruises at 300 knots, and costs about as much per hour to operate as most people make in a week." Noah let out a low whistle. "How much does it cost to buy one?" "About $3 million. Dad, you have one of these?" "Your grandpa did. Now we do." Noah looked at Ethan with an expression that was part awe, part confusion. "Why don't you fly it around all the time?" "Because it's a tool, not a toy. We use it when clients need it. Rest of the time it sits here, ready. They spent the next hour touring the hangar, looking at maintenance equipment, spare parts, the small fleet of vehicles used for ground operations. Frank explained how the business worked: contracts with regional airlines for cargo transport, flight training for new pilots, maintenance services for private owners who kept their aircraft here. "We clear about $4 million a year in profit," Frank said quietly, when Noah was distracted by a mechanic working on an engine. "After salaries, maintenance, fuel, insurance, all of it. Your dad doesn't take much out for himself. Most of it gets reinvested." "He doesn't need it," Ethan said. "Nobody needs $4 million a year, but it's nice to have options." They finished the tour and ended up in the office, a modest space with filing cabinets, a desk covered in paperwork, and a wall of photographs showing aircraft from over the decades. Noah found a picture of Thomas Mercer standing next to the original crop duster, the one from the photograph in the shed. "That's Grandpa." "That's him," Ethan confirmed. "He looks like you." "Or I look like him." Noah studied the photograph. "Do you miss him?" The question caught Ethan off guard. They didn't talk about Thomas much. It had been 5 years since the old man died, and Noah had only been 2, barely old enough to remember him. "Every day," Ethan said. "What was he like?" Frank answered before Ethan could. "He was the kind of man who kept his word. Didn't matter if it cost him, didn't matter if it was inconvenient. If Tom Mercer said he'd do something, it got done." "Was he nice?" "He was fair," Frank said, "which is better than nice." They left the hangar around noon, Noah full of questions about how planes worked, whether Ethan would teach him to fly someday, whether the business would be his when he grew up. "If you want it," Ethan said. "Do you want it?" "I want you to have choices. Your grandpa built this so we'd never be trapped, never be dependent on anyone else. Whether you run the business or sell it or turn it into something completely different, that's up to you." Noah thought about this. "What if I just want to be a mechanic like you?" "Then you'll be a mechanic. Nothing wrong with that." "But you're not really a mechanic." "Sure I am. I fix engines. That's the definition." "But you own planes and stuff." "Doesn't change what I do with my hands." They stopped for lunch at a diner off the highway, the kind of place with cracked vinyl booths and a waitress who called everyone Unknown. Noah ordered a burger with fries and talked non-stop about the King Air, about how fast it could go, about whether it was possible to fly all the way to California without stopping. Ethan's phone buzzed. A text from Margaret. "Motion to dismiss filed. Court date set for 3 weeks from now. I'll handle it. Don't worry." He wasn't worried. Adrian's lawsuit was theater, nothing more. But it nagged at him anyway, the way a loose tooth nagged even when you knew it would eventually fall out. They finished lunch and headed home. Noah fell asleep in the passenger seat, head against the window, exhausted from the excitement. Ethan drove in silence, one hand on the wheel, watching the road unroll ahead of him. When they got home, Vanessa's car was in the driveway. Ethan's jaw tightened. They had an agreement. She was supposed to call before showing up, supposed to schedule visits through him. Showing up unannounced violated that. He parked behind her car, trapping it in. Noah woke up, saw his mother's vehicle, and his expression went carefully neutral. "Did you know she was coming?" Noah asked. "No." "Should I go inside?" "Yeah, I'll handle this." Noah grabbed his backpack and went into the house without looking at his mother's car. Smart kid. Ethan walked to the driver's side. Vanessa rolled down the window. Her eyes were red, puffy. She'd been crying again. "What are you doing here?" Ethan asked. "I needed to see you." "We have a schedule. You're supposed to call first." "I know. I'm sorry. I didn't know where else to go." "That's not my problem anymore." She flinched. "Can we talk? Please? 5 minutes. Ethan looked at the house, where Noah was probably watching from a window, then back at Vanessa. 5 minutes. Out here." She got out of the car. She looked terrible. Wrinkled clothes, hair unwashed, the kind of disheveled that came from not sleeping for days. "Adrian's suing you," she said. "I know." "It's my fault. I should have seen what he was. I should have—" "Vanessa, I don't care about Adrian's lawsuit. It's going to get dismissed. What I care about is you showing up at my house without calling. Don't do it again." "I lost my job." That stopped him. "What?" "They fired me this morning. Said the scandal from the custody hearing reflected poorly on the firm. Said clients were uncomfortable working with me." Her voice cracked. "Ethan, I have nothing. No job, no savings, no—" Adrian cleaned out my accounts. He had access to everything. I'm broke. Ethan stared at her. Part of him wanted to feel satisfaction, poetic justice, karma, whatever you wanted to call it. She tried to destroy him financially, and now she was the one destroyed. But mostly, he just felt tired. You need to leave, he said. I don't have anywhere to go. That's not my problem. Ethan, please. I know I don't deserve help, but you're right. You don't. I'm Noah's mother, and you'll always be his mother, but you're not my responsibility anymore. You made that choice. Vanessa's face crumpled. I made a mistake, a huge, terrible mistake, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't pay your bills. I'm not asking for money. I'm asking for, I don't know, advice. Help figuring out what to do next. You're good at this stuff, at surviving, at being poor? Ethan's voice was cold. Isn't that what you called it? My fake mechanic lifestyle? I was wrong. Yeah, you were. He turned to walk away. Wait. Vanessa grabbed his arm. Just wait, please. Ethan looked at her hand on his arm, then at her face. She let go. What do you want from me? He asked. I don't know. Forgiveness? A second chance? Some sign that I'm not a complete failure as a human being? I can't give you any of that. Can't or won't. Both. Vanessa wrapped her arms around herself, shaking despite the warm afternoon. Noah's going to hate me. Probably. Can you at least tell him I'm trying? That I didn't mean for any of this to happen? He's 7, Vanessa. He doesn't care about your intentions. He cares that you tried to take him away from his dad. I was trying to protect him. From what? A stable home? A parent who actually shows up? That hit her like a physical blow. She stepped back, unsteady on her feet. Ethan felt a flicker of something, not quite guilt, but close. He was being cruel, saying things designed to hurt. That wasn't who he wanted to be. He exhaled slowly. Look, I'm sorry you lost your job. I'm sorry Adrian screwed you over, but I can't fix this for you. You made choices, and choices have consequences. I know. You want advice? Get a lawyer. File a police report about Adrian stealing from you. Find a new job. Figure out your life. But don't come here expecting me to save you. I'm not expecting... You are. That's exactly what you're doing, and I'm telling you it's not going to happen. Vanessa nodded slowly, tears streaming down her face. Okay. She got back in her car, hands shaking as she fumbled with the keys. Ethan moved his truck so she could leave. She pulled out of the driveway without looking at him, tires crunching on gravel, and disappeared down the street. Ethan stood there for a minute, feeling like he'd just kicked a dog. But what was he supposed to do? Let her move in? Give her money? Pretend the last year hadn't happened? He went inside. Noah was in the living room, pretending to watch TV. Is Mom okay? Noah asked. She will be. She looks sad. Yeah. Are you going to help her? Ethan sat down next to his son. That's complicated, buddy. Why? Because sometimes helping people means letting them figure things out on their own. Noah absorbed this, staring at the TV without really watching. I don't want her to be sad. I know, me neither. But you're still mad at her. Yeah. Can you be both? Mad and not wanting someone to be sad? Ethan put his arm around Noah's shoulders. You can be lots of things at once. That's part of being human. They sat there for a while, watching a show neither of them cared about, both thinking about things they didn't know how to say. The next few weeks passed in a strange kind of limbo. Adrian's lawsuit moved forward despite being obviously frivolous. Margaret filed motion after motion, each one getting delayed by technicalities and procedural games. Adrian had hired an expensive legal team. Where he got the money, Ethan didn't know, and they were dragging everything out as long as possible. He's punishing you, Margaret explained over the phone. This isn't about winning, it's about making your life difficult. So what do? We wait. Eventually a judge will see through it and dismiss, but it'll take time. Time. The one thing Adrian apparently had plenty of. Vanessa texted occasionally, always brief messages about picking up Noah or dropping him off. She'd found a job, not in real estate, but waiting tables at a restaurant downtown. The pay was terrible, but it was something. She'd moved in with her mother, a living situation that clearly made both of them miserable based on the few details Noah let slip. "Grandma keeps asking Mom why she married you," Noah said one night over dinner. "What does your mom say?" "That she was young and stupid." Ethan set down his fork. "That's not a nice thing to say." "Grandma said it first. Mom just agreed." "Well, it's still not nice." "Were you young and stupid?" "I was young. Can't speak to the other part." Noah smiled despite himself. "Do you wish you didn't marry her?" That was a harder question. If Ethan said yes, he was essentially saying he wished Noah didn't exist. But if he said no, he was lying. "I don't regret having you," Ethan said finally. "Everything else is complicated." "Adults say that a lot. It's complicated." "That's because it usually is." The court date for Adrian's lawsuit finally arrived on a Thursday morning. Ethan took the day off from the garage, put on his good suit again, and met Margaret at the courthouse. Adrian was there with his legal team, looking smug and confident. The judge was a man in his 60s named Harrison West, with a reputation for not tolerating nonsense. He listened to Adrian's attorney present the case: claims of defamation, reputational damage, lost business opportunities. Then Margaret stood up. "Your Honor, this entire lawsuit is predicated on statements made in a separate legal proceeding, the custody hearing between Mr. Mercer and Ms. Hale. Those statements were made under oath, verified by documentation, and found credible by Judge Morrison. Mr. Cole is attempting to use this court to relitigate matters already decided." Judge West looked at Adrian's attorney. "Is that accurate?" The attorney stammered. "Your Honor, the context—" "Answer the question. Are you attempting to challenge findings from a custody hearing?" "We're challenging the malicious intent behind—" "That's a yes." Judge West flipped through the case file. "Counselor, defamation requires false statements. Everything presented in the custody hearing was factual. Your client has a documented history of targeting wealthy women. That's not defamation. That's truth." "But Your Honor—" "Motion to dismiss granted. Mr. Cole, if you waste this court's time again, I'll sanction you for frivolous litigation. We're done here." The gavel came down. Adrian's face went red. He stood, pushing back his chair hard enough that it toppled over. "This is bullshit." "Mr. Cole, do not test me," Judge West warned. "You're all corrupt. This whole system. Bailiff, escort Mr. Cole from my courtroom." Adrian was still shouting as security let him out, his attorneys scrambling to gather their materials and distance themselves from the spectacle. Ethan watched it happen with a strange sense of detachment. This was supposed to feel like winning, but mostly it just felt like watching a train wreck in slow motion. Outside the courthouse, Margaret shook his hand. "That's done. He can appeal, but it won't go anywhere." "Thanks for everything. Just doing my job." She paused. "How's Noah handling all this?" "As well as can be expected." "And Vanessa?" "Not my concern." Margaret gave him a look that suggested she didn't quite believe that, but she let it drop. "Take care of yourself, Ethan." He drove home, picked up Noah from school, and tried to return to normal life. But normal kept shifting, kept refusing to settle into anything stable. That night, after Noah was asleep, Ethan got a call from an unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. "Hello?" "Mr. Mercer?" A woman's voice, professional, unfamiliar. "Yeah. This is Dr. Sarah Chen from Vanderbilt Medical Center. Your ex-wife, Vanessa Hale, was brought in this evening. She listed you as her emergency contact." Ethan's stomach dropped. "What happened?" "She was in a car accident. Nothing life-threatening, but she's being held for observation. Possible concussion, some bruising. She's asking for you." "I'll be there in 20 minutes." He called Mrs. Hale, asked her to come stay with Noah. She arrived within 10 minutes, asked no questions, just nodded and went inside. The drive to the hospital felt surreal, like something happening to someone else. Ethan kept thinking about Vanessa crying in her car, about the broken look on her face when he'd told her he wouldn't help. He found her in a room on the 3rd floor, awake but groggy, with a bandage on her forehead and her left arm in a sling. "Hey," she said when she saw him. "Hey yourself, what happened?" "I don't really remember. I was driving home from work and then I wasn't. They said someone ran a red light." "The other driver?" "Took off, hit and run." She tried to sit up, winced, gave up. "I'm sorry they called you. I meant to change my emergency contact." It's fine. No, it's not. You made it clear you're done with me. You shouldn't have to deal with this. Ethan pulled up a chair and sat down. You look terrible. Thanks. You really know how to make a girl feel special. Despite everything, he almost smiled. The doctor said you'll be okay. Yeah, they want to keep me overnight, make sure I don't have a brain bleed or whatever. Then I can go home. Your mom's place? Yeah. They sat in silence for a while. Hospital sounds filtered through the door, beeping machines, distant conversations, the squeak of shoes on linoleum. I meant what I said before, Ethan finally offered. I can't fix your life for you. I know. But I don't want you dead either. Vanessa laughed, then regretted it, holding her ribs. Well, that's something. You need to be more careful. Says the guy who works with heavy machinery every day. I am careful. You're paranoid. There's a difference. My paranoia keeps me alive. She looked at him, really looked at him, and something in her expression softened. I miss this. Just talking like normal people. We were never normal people. No, I guess not. A nurse came in to check vitals, gave Ethan a curious look, then left. Does Noah know? Vanessa asked. Not yet. I'll tell him tomorrow. He doesn't need to worry about me. He's going to anyway. He's your kid. He's your kid. I'm just the woman who screwed everything up. Don't do that. Do what? Wallow. It's annoying. Vanessa's eyes flashed. I'm lying in a hospital bed with a concussion. I think I've earned some wallowing. Fine. Wallow away. They glared at each other for a moment, then both looked away. Ethan stood. I should go. Noah's with your mom. Wait. Vanessa reached out with her good arm. Can you stay, just for a little while? I don't want to be alone. Everything in Ethan's brain screamed that this was a bad idea, that staying would send the wrong message, create false hope, blur lines that needed to stay clear. But he sat back down anyway. Okay, I'll stay. They sat in silence for nearly an hour, the only sounds coming from the hospital hallway and the rhythmic beeping of the monitor tracking Vanessa's vitals. She dozed off twice, jerking awake each time like she'd forgotten where she was. Ethan stayed in the chair, scrolling through his phone without really reading anything, just present because she'd asked him to be. Around 11, a different nurse came in with medication. Vanessa swallowed the pills without asking what they were, which seemed reckless but typical. You should go home, she said after the nurse left. Noah needs you in the morning. He's fine with your mom. She hates you. The feeling's mutual. Vanessa smiled despite the obvious pain it caused her face. She thinks you trapped me, got me pregnant on purpose to lock me down. I was there. Pretty sure it took 2 people. Try telling her that. Vanessa shifted in the bed, trying to find a position that didn't hurt. She wanted me to marry Bradley Sutton. Remember him? Vaguely. Rich kid, right? His dad owned half of Franklin? 3/4 of Franklin. Bradley was going to law school, had his whole life mapped out. Partner at his dad's firm by 30, state legislature by 40, senator by 50. Sounds thrilling. It would have been safe, predictable. She looked at Ethan. I chose you instead. Chose the guy who fixed cars and didn't care about impressing anyone. My mom never forgave me for it. And now she gets to say she was right all along. Yeah, she's been saying it a lot lately. Ethan stood and stretched, his back cracking. I'm going to get coffee. You want anything? They won't let me have caffeine, something about the concussion. So that's a yes to smuggling you coffee? That's a yes. He found a vending machine down the hall that dispensed something approximating coffee, bought 2 cups, and headed back. When he rounded the corner, he saw Adrian Cole standing outside Vanessa's room, hand on the door handle. Ethan's body moved before his brain caught up. He was across the hallway in 4 strides, coffee forgotten on a nearby table. Get your hand off that door. Adrian turned, and whatever expression he'd been wearing vanished behind a mask of casual indifference. Ethan, didn't expect to see you here. I said get your hand off the door. Adrian stepped back, hands raised in mock surrender. Relax, I'm just checking on Vanessa. I heard about the accident. From who? Does it matter? Yeah, actually, it does, because if you've been stalking her... Stalking? Jesus, you really do think the worst of everyone, don't you? Adrian leaned against the wall. all false casualness. I still have friends at her old firm. Word travels. She doesn't want to see you. Did she tell you that? She doesn't need to. Adrian smiled, the same empty smile he'd worn at that charity gala years ago. You know what's funny? I actually feel bad for you. Save it. No, really. You think you won. You got custody, kept your money hidden, made me look like the villain, but you're still here, in a hospital at midnight, sitting with your ex-wife because she can't handle being alone. That's not winning, that's just sad. Ethan took a step forward. Adrian didn't move, which was either brave or stupid. You need to leave, Ethan said quietly. Now. Or what? You'll hit me? That'll look great in court. Oh wait, I forgot. Judges love you. The humble mechanic with the secret fortune. What a story. Last chance. Adrian pushed off the wall. Fine. Tell Vanessa I stopped by. Tell her I hope she feels better. Tell her I'm sorry for everything. You're not sorry for anything. You're right, I'm not. Adrian started walking toward the elevator, then stopped and turned back. But here's something to think about while you're playing hero. That accident tonight, the hit and run, that wasn't random. Ethan went cold. What are you saying? I'm saying Vanessa's made some people very unhappy. Clients who lost money when she got fired. Investors who backed out of deals when her name got dragged through the press. People have long memories in this business. You're threatening her. I'm not threatening anyone. I'm just pointing out that actions have consequences. She destroyed her own reputation. I just helped it along. If you had anything to do with that accident, me? I've been in Memphis all week, got receipts, witnesses, the whole alibi, but you know how it is. Sometimes bad things just happen to people who make bad choices. Adrian got on the elevator and the doors closed before Ethan could respond. He stood there for a long moment, heart pounding, trying to decide if Adrian was bluffing or if the threat was real. He pulled out his phone and called Margaret. Voicemail. He texted her. Need to talk ASAP. Adrian showed up at hospital, made threats about Vanessa's accident. Then he called the nursing station and asked them to add Adrian Cole to the list of people not allowed in Vanessa's room. The nurse on duty took down the information without asking questions, which suggested this kind of thing happened more often than it should. When Ethan got back to the room, Vanessa was awake, staring at the ceiling. Where's my coffee? She asked. Left it in the hall. I'll get you another one. What happened? You look like you saw a ghost. Adrian was here. She sat up too fast, winced, grabbed her ribs. What? I sent him away. He's on the do not admit list now. What did he want? Ethan debated telling her about the threat, decided against it. She was already scared, already broken. No point making it worse. Just to mess with me. It's what he does. Vanessa lay back down slowly. He won't stop, you know. Men like Adrian, they don't give up. They just keep circling until they find a weakness. Then I won't give him one. You already did. She looked at him. You care what happens to me. That makes me a weakness. Care what happens to Noah's mother. That's different. Is it? Ethan didn't answer because he didn't know. He stayed until Vanessa fell asleep for real, her breathing evening out, the tension leaving her face. Then he left a note with his phone number at the nurse's station and drove home through empty streets. Mrs. Hale was asleep on the couch when he got there, still dressed, TV playing some infomercial about kitchen knives. He woke her gently. How is she? Mrs. Hale asked, sitting up. Banged up, but she'll live. Were you there the whole time? Most of it. Mrs. Hale studied him in the dim light from the TV. You're a better man than I gave you credit for. Don't go changing your opinion on my account. She almost smiled. My daughter made mistakes. A lot of them. But she loved you once. Really loved you. Past tense again. Maybe not as past as you think. Mrs. Hale stood, gathering her purse. She talks about you constantly. What you said, what you did, how you handled things. She's still trying to figure out how she missed it. Missed what? That you were exactly the kind of man she needed, just not the kind she wanted. She left before Ethan could respond. He checked on Noah, still asleep, sprawled across his bed like he'd been dropped from a height, then collapsed on his own bed fully clothed. Sleep came eventually, restless and full of dreams about courtrooms and airplane crashes and Adrian's empty smile. His phone woke him at 6. Margaret. I got your text, she said without preamble. Tell me everything. He did, including Adrian's comments about the accident not being random. Margaret was quiet for a long time. That could be actionable. We could get a restraining order, maybe press charges for intimidation. Based on what? He didn't admit to anything specific. Implied threats count. In the real world or in legal theory? Point taken. He heard papers shuffling. I'll make some calls, see if I can find out more about the accident. If Adrian was involved, he left a trail somewhere. And if he wasn't? If it really was just a hit and run? Then we stay vigilant. Keep Vanessa away from him. Document any contact. Ethan rubbed his eyes. This is never going to end, is it? Men like Adrian have short attention spans. Eventually, he'll find a new target and move on. You sound really confident about that. I'm trying to be reassuring. Try harder. She hung up after promising to call with updates. Ethan got up, made coffee, and was starting breakfast when Noah wandered out of his room, hair sticking up in 7 different directions. Is Mom okay? Noah asked. News traveled fast, apparently. She's fine, just a little accident. Grandma said she was in the hospital. Grandma talks too much. Can I see her? Ethan flipped a pancake. Maybe later this week. She needs to rest. Was it bad? The accident? Not too bad. Someone hit her car and drove away. She got bumped around, but nothing serious. Noah climbed onto a kitchen stool. Do the police know who did it? Not yet. That's messed up. People should take responsibility for their actions. Ethan looked at his son, 7 years old and already sounding like a guidance counselor. Yeah, they should, but they don't always. Why not? Because taking responsibility is hard. Running away is easy. Noah thought about this while eating pancakes drenched in syrup. Is that why Mom left? Because taking responsibility was hard? The question hit harder than it should have. That's between your mom and me, buddy. But you think that's why? I think people make choices that seem right at the time, and then later they realize those choices had consequences they didn't see coming. That's a complicated way of saying yes. When'd you get so smart? I've always been smart. You just weren't paying attention. Ethan smiled despite everything. Fair enough. They finished breakfast and Ethan drove Noah to school, watching the kid disappear into the building with his oversized backpack and confident walk. 7 years old and already more emotionally intelligent than most adults. On the drive back home, Ethan's phone rang. Unknown number again. He almost didn't answer. Hello? Mr. Mercer? This is Detective Sarah Kim with Nashville Metro. I'm investigating the hit and run involving Vanessa Hale. Do you have a few minutes? Yeah, sure. Ms. Hale listed you as someone who might have information. Can you tell me about her recent interactions with a man named Adrian Cole? Ethan pulled over into a gas station parking lot. How much time do you have? He spent 20 minutes walking Detective Kim through everything. The custody battle, Adrian's lawsuit, the confrontation at the hospital. She asked sharp questions, took detailed notes, didn't interrupt. Has Mr. Cole made any direct threats? She asked. Not exactly direct. More implied. He suggested the accident wasn't random. But he didn't claim responsibility? Not in so many words. Did he say who might be responsible? He mentioned clients and investors who were angry at Vanessa, but he was vague, deliberately vague. Detective Kim was quiet for a moment. Mr. Mercer, I'm going to be straight with you. Unless we find physical evidence tying Mr. Cole to this incident, there's not much I can do about implied threats, and so far we haven't found the vehicle that hit Miss Hale. No witnesses, no traffic cameras in that area. So he gets away with it. I didn't say that. I said it's difficult. There's a difference. Seems like the same thing from where I'm sitting. Keep documenting any contact he makes. Get cameras for your property if you don't have them already. Stay aware of your surroundings. And if he makes any direct threats, call me immediately. She gave him her direct number. I'll keep working the accident from my end. Sometimes these things break when you least expect it. Shia hung up. Ethan sat in the parking lot watching people pump gas and buy lottery tickets and go about their normal lives like the world wasn't actively trying to destroy people they cared about. He drove home and spent the afternoon installing security cameras around the property. Front door, back door, driveway, shed. The system cost $2,000 and took 4 hours to set up properly, But by the time he finished, anyone approaching the house would be on video. His phone buzzed. Vanessa, they're releasing me. Can you pick me up? Mom's car won't start. He texted back, be there in 30. The hospital discharge process took an hour despite Vanessa being ready when he arrived. Paperwork, medication instructions, follow-up appointments, warnings about concussion symptoms. Finally, they escaped to the parking lot. Vanessa moved slowly, favoring her left side. Ethan opened the truck door for her, and she climbed in with visible effort. Thanks for this, she said once they were on the road. Your mom's house or somewhere else? Can we just drive for a bit? I'm not ready to deal with her yet. Sure. They drove aimlessly through Nashville, no destination in mind. Vanessa stared out the window, watching the city pass by. Detective Kim called me this morning, she said eventually. Asked about Adrian. She called me too. What did you tell her? The truth. All of it. Vanessa nodded. Adrian was at the hospital last night, wasn't he? That's why you looked upset when you came back. Yeah. What did he say? Ethan debated lying. Decided Vanessa deserved the truth. He implied the accident wasn't random. Said you'd made people angry. Her hands tightened in her lap. He's trying to scare me. Is it working? Honestly? Yeah. A little. She turned to look at him. You think he was behind it? I don't know. Maybe. But the police can't prove anything, and Adrian's smart enough to keep his hands clean. So what do I do? You stay away from him. You document everything. You rebuild your life and don't give him any power over you. Easy to say. Didn't say it was easy, just necessary. They ended up at the same Riverside Park where they'd met weeks ago. Ethan parked and they sat watching the Cumberland flow past, steady and unconcerned with human problems. I've been thinking, Vanessa said, about what you said that day, about me wanting something you couldn't give me. Okay? You were right. I did. I wanted status, recognition, proof that I mattered, and I thought money and success would give me that. But they didn't. They just made me miserable in a more expensive way. What are you saying? I'm saying I was wrong about everything, about you, about what mattered, about what I actually needed. She looked at him. I don't expect you to forgive me. I know I destroyed any chance of that. But I need you to know I finally get it, what your dad was trying to teach you, what you were trying to live by. Which is? That being someone worth respecting is more important than being someone people recognize. Ethan stared out at the river. My dad used to say that reputation is what people think you are. Character is what you actually are. And only one of those matters when you're looking at yourself in the mirror. I haven't been able to look at myself in weeks. That'll pass. Eventually. Will it? If you actually change. If this is just you feeling sorry for yourself, then no. But if you mean it, if you actually become someone different, then yeah, it passes. Vanessa wiped at her eyes with her good hand. I hate crying in front of you. I've seen worse. When? That time Noah had croup and you were convinced he was dying. You cried for 3 hours straight. Despite everything, she laughed. He was making that horrible barking sound. I thought his throat was closing up. It was croup. Every kid gets it. Not my kid. Especially your kid. He's dramatic. They sat there for another hour, just talking. About Noah, about old memories from before everything went wrong, about nothing in particular. It was the most normal conversation they'd had in over a year. Finally, Vanessa said, I should probably face my mother before she sends out a search party. She's not that bad. You don't have to live with her. Ethan drove Vanessa to her mother's house, a tidy suburban place with flowers in the yard and judgment in the curtains. Mrs. Hale was waiting on the porch before they even parked. I can get her inside, Mrs. Hale said, not quite meeting Ethan's eyes. She's pretty banged up. Might need help with stairs. I said I can handle it. Vanessa shot Ethan a look that said, see what I deal with, but got out of the truck without arguing. Ethan waited until she was safely inside before driving away. The next few weeks settled into an uncomfortable routine. Ethan worked the garage, picked up Noah from school, installed more security measures around the house. Margaret kept him updated on non-developments with the police investigation. No leads on the hit-and-run driver, no evidence tying Adrian to anything concrete. Vanessa started texting more frequently, random observations about her day, questions about Noah, small attempts at rebuilding something resembling a friendship. Ethan responded politely, but maintained distance. Some bridges, once burned, couldn't be rebuilt no matter how much both sides wanted it. Noah split his time between both parents on a revised schedule that actually worked. He seemed happier, less caught in the middle, more like a regular kid whose parents just happened to live separately. Then, on a Tuesday afternoon, everything shifted. Ethan was under a Ford Taurus, replacing an oil pan, when his phone rang. Margaret. "We got him," she said. Ethan rolled out from under the car. "Got who?" "Adrian. The police found the vehicle that hit Vanessa. It was a rental car returned the day after the accident with front-end damage. The rental company had video of Adrian picking it up." "Wait, what? He used his own name?" "He used a fake ID, but it was sloppy. And here's the beautiful part. He paid cash but had to put a credit card on file for insurance. Guess whose credit card?" "His actual one." "His actual one. The man's an idiot. He got too confident, thought he was untouchable." Ethan sat down on a rolling stool. "Is it enough to arrest him?" "Detective Kim picked him up an hour ago. They're charging him with hit and run, aggravated assault, and a few other things. She wanted me to call you first." "Does Vanessa know?" "I'm calling her next. Just wanted you to hear it first since you've been dealing with his harassment." After Margaret hung up, Ethan sat in the quiet garage, oil-stained and exhausted, trying to process what this meant. Adrian was done. Actually done this time, not just embarrassed in court, but facing real criminal charges. The threat was gone. So why didn't it feel like relief? He called Vanessa. She answered on the first ring. "Margaret told you?" she asked. "Yeah." "I don't know what to feel. Is that weird?" "No, it's normal. He tried to kill me, Ethan. He rented a car and ran me off the road, and I feel nothing. Just tired." "That's shock. Give it time." "I don't want to give it time. I want to feel something. Anger, fear, relief. Anything but this empty nothing." Ethan understood exactly what she meant. He'd felt the same way when the custody ruling came down, when Adrian's lawsuit got dismissed. The wins didn't feel like wins. They just felt like surviving. "You want to come over for dinner?" he asked before he could think better of it. "Noah's been asking about you. We could all eat together." Vanessa was quiet for a long moment. "You sure that's a good idea?" "Probably not, but I'm offering anyway." "Okay, yeah, I'd like that." She showed up at 6, still moving carefully, but looking better than she had in the hospital. Noah ran to hug her, and she held him with her good arm, crying into his hair. "I'm okay, baby," she whispered. "I'm okay." They ate spaghetti, Ethan's default, and garlic bread from the grocery store. Conversation was awkward at first, everyone trying too hard, but gradually it relaxed into something almost comfortable. Noah told stories about school, about his science project on aerodynamics, about the kid in his class who could burp the alphabet. After dinner, Vanessa helped clean up while Noah did homework in the living room. She and Ethan stood at the sink, washing dishes side by side like they had 1,000 times before the world fell apart. "This feels weird," Vanessa said. "Good weird or bad weird?" "I don't know yet." Ethan handed her a plate to dry. "Adrian's probably going to prison. Margaret said 5 to 10 years if he's convicted. That's a long time. Not long enough." She set down the plate. "I'm angry now, I think, or maybe scared. I can't tell the difference anymore." They feel pretty similar. "How do you always stay so calm? Even when everything's falling apart, you just handle it." "I don't. I just hide it better." She looked at him. "I wasted so much time, didn't I? Being embarrassed by the one person who actually had his life together." "You weren't wasting time. You were figuring out who you are. And who I'm not. That too." Noah appeared in the doorway. "Mom, can you help me with my math? Dad's terrible at fractions." "I'm great at fractions," Ethan protested. "You told me 3/4 plus 1/4 equals 5/4. That's technically correct." "It's supposed to be simplified." Vanessa laughed, the first genuine laugh Ethan had heard from her in over a year. "I'll help you, baby. Your dad can finish the dishes." She followed Noah to the living room, leaving Ethan alone with the sink and his thoughts. He could hear them in the other room. Vanessa explaining fractions with the patience she'd always had for Noah, even when she had none for Ethan. Maybe that was enough. Not reconciliation, not forgiveness, Just three people figuring out how to exist in the same space without destroying each other. It wasn't the happy ending anyone would write, but it was real. And real was what his father had always valued most. Vanessa left around 9 after Noah had fallen asleep on the couch during a documentary about the Wright brothers. Ethan carried the kid to bed while Vanessa gathered her things, moving slower than she probably wanted to admit. "Thanks for tonight," she said at the door. "It meant a lot, to both of us. We can do it again sometime if you want." "I'd like that." She left, and Ethan stood on the porch watching her taillights disappear down the street. The night was warm, crickets loud, the kind of evening that made you forget winter ever existed. He sat on the porch steps for a while, just breathing, just being still. His phone buzzed. A text from Frank at the hangar. "Got a situation. Can you call when you have a minute?" Ethan dialed immediately. "What's wrong?" "Nothing urgent, but we need to talk about the business. You got time tomorrow?" "Yeah, what's this about?" "Rather discuss it in person. It's good news, mostly. Just complicated." They agreed to meet at the hangar at 10 the next morning. Ethan hung up wondering what good news could possibly be complicated, but Frank had been managing operations for 2 decades. If he said it needed an in-person conversation, it did. The next morning, after dropping Noah at school, Ethan drove south to the hangar. Frank was waiting in the office, looking uncomfortable in a way that suggested whatever this was, he'd been dreading the conversation. "Coffee?" Frank offered. "Just tell me what's going on." Frank sat down behind the desk, pulled out a folder. "We got an acquisition offer, a big one." "From who?" "Southern Regional Airways. They want to buy Mercer Aviation outright. Aircraft, hangars, contracts, everything." Ethan took the folder, flipped it open. The number on the first page made him blink. "That's $68 million, Frank finished. "They're serious. They've done their due diligence, reviewed all our assets, talked to our clients. They want an answer within 30 days. Ethan sat down slowly. "Why? We're profitable, well-run, and we have infrastructure they need. They're expanding cargo operations across the Southeast, and buying us is cheaper than building from scratch." Frank leaned back in his chair. "Your dad always said someone would come calling eventually. Guess he was right." "What do you think I should do?" "That's not my decision." "You've been here longer than I have. You knew my dad better than anyone. What would he say?" Frank was quiet for a long moment. "Tom built this business so you'd never have to depend on anyone. So you'd always have options. Selling gives you the biggest option of all, freedom to do whatever the hell you want. And the employees, the pilots, the mechanics, everyone who depends on this? Southern's offer includes keeping all current staff for minimum 2 years, same salaries and benefits. After that, no guarantees, but they're not looking to gut the operation. They need us running smooth." Ethan stared at the number. 68 million. More money than 3 generations of Mercers could spend. Enough to never worry about anything ever again. And somehow it felt like losing something. "I need time to think," Ethan said. "You've got 30 days, use them." Ethan drove home in a daze, the folder sitting on the passenger seat like a bomb. He kept glancing at it, making sure he'd read the number right, that this wasn't some fever dream brought on by too much stress and too little sleep. At home, he made coffee he didn't drink and stared at the backyard, at the shed where his father's secrets had lived for decades. The old man had built something that mattered, something that employed people and served a purpose. Selling it felt like betrayal. But keeping it out of some misplaced sense of obligation felt stupid. His phone rang. "Margaret." "Adrian's bail hearing is this afternoon," she said. "Detective Kim thought you'd want to know." "Is Vanessa going?" "She asked me the same thing about you. I think you're both trying to avoid each other." "We had dinner last night at my place." "Did you?" Margaret's tone suggested she had opinions about that. "How'd it go?" "Better than expected. Less awkward than it should have been." "Ethan, I'm going to give you some free advice as someone who's seen a lot of divorces. Don't confuse nostalgia with actual compatibility. You and Vanessa had real problems. One nice dinner doesn't fix that." "I know." "Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, you're doing that thing where you try to save people who don't want to be saved." "She's not a project, Margaret." "I didn't say she was. I'm saying you need to figure out what you actually want before you accidentally rebuild a relationship that didn't work the first time." She hung up before he could argue, which was probably smart because he didn't have a good argument. What did he want? The question sat in his chest like indigestion. He wanted Noah to be happy. He wanted to stop looking over his shoulder for Adrian's next move. He wanted the constant low-grade anxiety of the past year to finally lift. Did he want Vanessa back? He honestly didn't know. The bail hearing happened without him. Margaret texted the results. Bail denied. Flight risk. He stays locked up until trial. Ethan forwarded the message to Vanessa, added, "It's over. Really over this time." Her response came quickly. "Is it weird that I feel bad for him?" "Yes, but also kind of not." "Also, yes. I'm a mess. You're human. There's a difference." That night, Noah asked about the planes again. "When can we go back to the hangar? You said we could go any time." "How about this Saturday?" "Really?" "Really. And this time I'll let you sit in the cockpit." Noah's face lit up like Ethan had just promised him Disney World. "Can I touch the controls?" "We'll see." That's still adult for probably not. It's adult for don't push your luck. Saturday arrived with clear skies and Noah awake at dawn, practically vibrating with excitement. They made the drive south with the windows down, Noah asking a million questions about how planes worked, whether Ethan had ever crashed, whether it was scary being that high up. "You're never scared when you're flying," Ethan said. "You're too busy, too focused. Fear only shows up when you have time to think about it." "Is that true for everything?" "Pretty much." At the hangar, Frank was waiting with the King Air pulled out of storage, gleaming in the morning sun. Noah approached it like it was a religious artifact, hands hovering but not quite touching. "Go ahead," Frank said. "It's yours as much as anyone's." Noah ran his hand along the fuselage, the same way he had with the Cessna months ago, but this time with a kind of ownership, like he was finally understanding what all this meant. Frank opened the cabin door and Noah climbed inside, eyes wide. Ethan followed, watching his son take in the leather seats, the instrument panels, the cramped but luxurious interior. "Can I go up front?" Noah asked. "Yeah." They squeezed into the cockpit. Noah climbed into the left seat, hands gripping the yoke, feet nowhere near the pedals. Ethan sat in the right seat, the same seat his father had occupied when teaching him to fly 20 years ago. "What's this do?" Noah pointed at a switch. "Fuel selector. Don't touch it." "What about this?" "Throttle control. Also, don't touch it." "Can I touch anything?" "The yoke. That's it." Noah moved the yoke carefully, watching the control surfaces outside move in response. "This is so cool. Dad, we have to keep this. We can't ever sell it." The comment hit Ethan harder than it should have. What if someone offered us a lot of money for it? How much? More than we'd ever need. Noah thought about this, still gripping the yoke. Would they take care of it, the people buying it? Probably. Then it depends. On what? On whether you want to keep doing this or do something else. Noah looked at him. "Grandpa built this for you, right? So you'd have choices?" "Yeah." "Then you should choose. Not because of money, but because of what you actually want to do." 7 years old, and the kid understood more about life than most adults ever would. Ethan ruffled his hair. "When'd you get so smart? You keep asking me that. I keep being smart. Eventually you'll have to accept it." They spent another hour at the hangar, Noah asking questions, Frank answering with the patience of someone who genuinely loved this work. When they finally left, Noah fell asleep in the truck, exhausted from excitement. Ethan drove home thinking about the acquisition offer, about what his father would actually want, about the difference between honoring a legacy and being trapped by it. That night, after Noah was in bed, Ethan called Vanessa. "Hey," she answered. "Everything okay?" "Yeah, just wanted to talk. You busy?" "Watching TV I'm not paying attention to. What's up?" He told her about the acquisition offer, about the decision he had to make, about feeling stuck between what made sense financially and what felt right emotionally. "What does Noah think?" she asked. "He said I should choose based on what I actually want to do, not because of money." "Smart kid. Gets it from his mother." Vanessa laughed. "Nice try, but we both know where he gets his brains. What do you want to do, Ethan? Not what makes sense, not what your dad would have wanted. What do you want?" He sat with the question, really sat with it. "I want to stop carrying all this weight. The business, the secrets, the constant vigilance. I'm tired. Then sell it. Just like that? Just like that. Your dad built it so you'd have freedom. Use it. They talked for another hour, about nothing in particular, about everything. When they finally hung up, Ethan felt lighter than he had in months. The next morning, he called Frank. Accept the offer. Let's sell. You sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. The sale process took 3 months of paperwork, negotiations, due diligence. Southern Regional wanted everything verified, every asset accounted for, every contract reviewed. Margaret handled most of it, turning Ethan's informal business practices into proper legal documentation. During those 3 months, life continued in strange new patterns. Adrian's trial date got set for August. Vanessa found a better job managing a small real estate office that didn't require schmoozing wealthy clients. She and Ethan had dinner together once a week, sometimes with Noah, sometimes without, rebuilding something that wasn't quite friendship, but wasn't quite anything else either. "What are we doing?" Vanessa asked one night, sitting on Ethan's back porch after Noah had gone to bed. "I don't know." "That's not helpful. It's honest." She pulled her knees up to her chest, staring at the shed. "I don't want to get back together." "Okay. But I don't want to not be in your life either." "Also okay. You're being very agreeable about this." "I'm tired of fighting. If you want to figure out what this is slowly, I'm fine with that." "What if we never figure it out?" "Then we don't. We just keep showing up and being decent to each other and raising our kid." Vanessa looked at him. "That's really all you need? Just basic decency?" "Decency is underrated. Most people can't even manage that." She laughed, shaking her head. "I really screwed up, didn't I? Had the guy who just wanted basic decency and kindness, and I threw it away for someone who gave me neither. You were looking for something I couldn't give you. Because what you were giving me was too simple, too real. I wanted fairy tales, and you were offering actual partnership. Past tense again." "Maybe not." She stood up. "I should go, but Ethan, thanks for not giving up on me completely. I didn't do it for you. I did it for Noah." "I know, but I'm grateful anyway." The sale of Mercer Aviation closed on a Wednesday afternoon in June. Ethan signed more papers than should be legal while Margaret and Frank witnessed. The wire transfer hit his account at 3:47 p.m., $68 million, minus legal fees and taxes, leaving him with roughly $43 million in liquid assets. Frank shook his hand. "Your dad would be proud." "You think?" "He built this so you'd have choices. You chose. That's all he ever wanted." Southern Regional kept everyone on as promised. The plane stayed in operation. The hangars stayed open. Everything continued exactly as before, just with different letterhead. Ethan drove home and sat in his truck in the driveway for 20 minutes, trying to process what had just happened. He was officially, undeniably, absurdly wealthy. He could buy any house he wanted, any car, travel anywhere, do anything, and all he wanted was to pick up his kid from school. So he did. Noah climbed into the truck, backpack first, energy second. "Dad, guess what? I got an A on my science project." "The aerodynamics one?" "Yeah, Mrs. Patterson said it was the best one in the class." "That's great, buddy. Are we celebrating? Can we get ice cream?" "We can do better than ice cream. What do you want to do this summer? Anything. Name it." Noah thought about this seriously. "Can we learn to fly? Like, actually fly? You and me?" "You're 7. So? You said Grandpa taught you when you were 16. We could start learning now, and I'll be ahead when I'm old enough for my license." Ethan looked at his son, small for his age, but growing, already thinking years into the future. "Yeah, we can do that." "Really? Really?" Noah whooped and punched the air. "This is the best day ever." They got ice cream anyway, because some traditions didn't need money to make them better. Sitting in the parking lot of the ice cream shop, Noah asked, "Are we rich now? Like, really rich?" "Yeah, we are." "Are we going to move, get a big house?" "Do you want to?" Noah considered this, licking his chocolate cone. "I like our house. It's got the shed and the backyard and my room. Why would we move?" "Most people would want something bigger." "Most people aren't us." And there it was again, 7 years old and understanding what took most people a lifetime to learn. Having enough was better than having everything. Being content was better than being impressive. "You're right," Ethan said. "We're not most people." Adrian's trial happened in August. A week of testimony that Ethan followed from a distance. He didn't attend, didn't need to see Adrian one more time, but Margaret kept him updated. The prosecution had camera footage, rental records, credit card receipts. The defense tried to claim mistaken identity, but it fell apart under scrutiny. The jury deliberated for 3 hours and came back with guilty verdicts on all counts. The judge sentenced Adrian to 8 years, eligible for parole after 5. Vanessa called Ethan after the sentencing. "It's really over." "Yeah. I keep waiting to feel relief or happiness. Something. Give it time. Eventually you'll just feel normal again." "Is that what you feel? Normal?" Ethan thought about it. Getting there, they hung up, and Ethan realized he'd been telling the truth. He did feel almost normal again. The constant vigilance had faded. The anger had dulled into something more manageable. He was just living, day to day, raising his kid, working in the garage because he liked it, not because he needed the money. In September, Noah started 3rd grade. In October, they flew together for the first time. Ethan in the left seat, Noah in the right, an instructor in the back, making sure they didn't kill themselves. Noah spent the entire flight grinning like a maniac, and when they landed, he turned to Ethan and said, "Can we do that every week?" They did it every week. In November, Vanessa got promoted to regional manager at her real estate office. She took Ethan and Noah out to dinner to celebrate, and they sat in a booth at a chain restaurant, eating mediocre food and laughing at Noah's stories about his classmates. "This is nice," Vanessa said, after Noah excused himself to go to the bathroom. "Yeah. I mean it, just this. Being normal people doing normal things. We were always normal people. You just forgot for a while." "I forgot a lot of things." "You remembered eventually. That's what matters." When Noah came back, he had dessert menus and a plan to order one of everything. They talked him down to reasonable choices, paid the bill, and went their separate ways. Vanessa to her apartment, Ethan and Noah to the gray house on Elmwood Drive. That night, tucking Noah into bed, Ethan asked, "You happy, buddy?" "Yeah, why?" "Just checking." "Are you happy?" The question caught him off guard. Was he happy? He'd won the custody battle, sold the business, secured his son's future, seen his enemy sent to prison. By all accounts, he should be thrilled. "I'm content," Ethan said. "That's better than happy." "How?" "Happy is a feeling. It comes and goes. Content is a state of being. It stays." Noah thought about this. "I'm both." "Then you're ahead of the game." December brought the first real cold snap of winter. Ethan and Noah put up Christmas decorations. Nothing fancy, just lights on the porch and a small tree in the living room. Vanessa came over on Christmas Eve, brought presents, stayed for dinner. They didn't talk about getting back together. They didn't talk about the future. They just existed in the present. 3 people who'd survived something terrible and come out the other side different but intact. After Noah went to bed, Ethan and Vanessa sat on the couch, watching the tree lights blink. "I've been thinking," Vanessa said, "about what comes next. And? I don't know, but I want you in it, however that looks. As friends? As something. We can figure out the details as we go." Ethan nodded. It wasn't a declaration of love or a promise of reconciliation. It was just 2 people agreeing to keep trying, to keep showing up, to keep choosing decency over drama. "Okay," he said, "we can do that." "Just like that?" "Just like that." She leaned her head on his shoulder, and they sat there watching the lights blink. 2 people who'd taken the long way around to understanding what his father had known all along. Real strength didn't announce itself. Real wealth didn't need display. And real love was just showing up day after day, even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. On New Year's Eve, Ethan took Noah to the hangar one last time. Southern Regional had repainted everything, added new signage, but the bones of the place were still the same. They walked through the quiet building, Noah's hand in his, both of them saying goodbye to something that had defined their family for 50 years. "Grandpa would be okay with this, right?" Noah asked. "Us selling?" "Yeah, he'd be okay with it." "How do you know?" "Because he built it for freedom. We used that freedom. That's exactly what he wanted." They stood outside as the sun set, painting the sky in oranges and purples. The aircraft on the tarmac gleamed in the dying light, mechanical birds that had carried the Mercer name across thousands of miles. "Dad?" Noah squeezed his hand. "I love you." I love you too, buddy. Are we going to be okay? We're already okay. I mean, like forever okay. Ethan looked down at his son, small but growing, young, but wise beyond his years, carrying the weight of a legacy he didn't even fully understand yet. Yeah, Ethan said, we're going to be okay forever. They drove home as the first stars appeared, the radio playing old country songs neither of them really liked, but both hummed along to anyway. The gray house waited for them, lights on in the windows, exactly as ordinary and unremarkable as ever. Ethan pulled into the driveway and sat there for a moment, engine idling, looking at the home his father had left him. You ready? Noah asked. For what? For whatever comes next. Ethan smiled. Yeah, I'm ready. They went inside and the door closed behind them, shutting out the cold and the darkness and all the chaos that had defined the last year. Inside was warmth and light and the simple comfort of being exactly where you needed to be. Not because it was impressive, not because it would make anyone jealous, but because it was real and it was theirs, and that was enough. It had always been enough. Thomas Mercer had spent 40 years building an empire so his son would understand a simple truth. The most valuable things in life couldn't be measured in dollars or square footage or other people's opinions. They were measured in quiet moments with your kid, in choosing character over reputation, and being the kind of person who could look at themselves in the mirror without flinching. Ethan had learned that lesson the hard way, through divorce and betrayal and courtroom battles. But he'd learned it, and now he'd teach it to Noah, the same way his father had taught him. Not through lectures or grand gestures, but through daily choices. Through staying humble when arrogance would be easier. Through keeping promises when breaking them would be simpler. Through showing up day after day, being exactly who you were without apology or explanation. The world would keep trying to measure them by the wrong metrics. It would look at the modest house and the aging truck and assume struggle. It would never know about the 43 million in the bank or the sold aviation empire or the quiet legacy being passed down. And that was exactly how it should be. Because the people who mattered, Noah and maybe someday Vanessa again if they could figure out how to rebuild something better than before. They knew the truth. They knew that Ethan Mercer wasn't weak or failing or small. He was free. And freedom, the real kind that came from needing nothing and owing no one, that was worth more than any amount of money could buy. Outside, snow started to fall. The first of the season, dusting the gray house and the old truck and the weathered shed where secrets had been kept and legacies had been stored. Inside, a father and son sat together, planning flying lessons and science projects and summers filled with ordinary adventures. And somewhere in the difference between the outside view and the inside reality, between what people assumed and what was actually true, the whole point of Thomas Mercer's life's work lived on, not in aircraft or bank accounts or property deeds, but in the simple revolutionary act of being content with exactly who you were.